So kind of the rundown, as you know, with this meeting is we need to meet collectively and kind of have an overview of how everything wrapped up as well as kind of plans moving forward. So as Moses and I have structured this meeting, the idea is that we've kind of pieced it together how we're going to present this. So I wanted to give you kind of the overview of where things closed out as well as projects we got going on this year and plans on kind of direction for the budget moving forward. And then Moses is going to hand out, and what he tried to do was take a look at our budget from last year to then also this year so that you can see where the money's going, like what we've gained in most of our elementary funds. We're up in numerous high school funds as well from last year, but Moses will kind of go through that and give you a detailed breakdown of how that looks. And then between now and next Tuesday, when we're scheduled to approve our elementary and high school budget, would be the time for us to, if you guys have questions or you want to see any adjustments, now would be that time. So when we come back next Tuesday, we're ready to go for approval. And so next Tuesday's meeting, which would be a lunchtime meeting as we have it scheduled now, unless we needed to change it to the evening for some reason, would be just the main focus is approving the budget as well as doing any personnel at that time. So that's would be kind of the flow with that. Does that sound good? Okay. So as I go ahead and start out, so in front of you, you can see we have a budget overview sheet for 23, 24. We'll kind of start there. That sounds good. And I can kind of talk through. Yes, Jake.
You mind if I move over there so I can
You
hear
can totally move over, Jake. You bet.
You didn't want to face off with me?
What's that?
You didn't want to face off? Nice to be part of the group.
My hearing is a little bit rough, I think.
Yep.
Ears around decently.
Yep. No worries.
That kind of makes it tough to hear on text.
I know it does. So kind of some of the closeouts that we experienced, which as I know most of you are aware, as we closed out 23, 24, there was some different issues that we needed to kind of handle, shore up, and then be able to move forward. Okay. So as we closed out this past spring, we found that our Havre Public Schools daycare continued to lose money for the past 2 years at roughly $9,700 per year. And so the previous couple of years, we'd been on this trend of losing money in that area. As you know, when we got to last spring, Holly and I worked with our daycare providers, Rose and Jenny, to really come up with a new structure for payment that moved the threshold up a little bit. But our goal in kind of providing that, finding out what that right threshold was enough to just make that program exist and work. At the same time, with the big picture with this program was to have and provide daycare for our employees so they can come to work at Havre Public Schools consistent. It wasn't to all of a sudden put a big chunk into savings or anything like that. It was just to make the program work. So we made those adjustments that we proved in the spring, right, in those contract thresholds. And that, I'll talk about that when we get to that next stage. But so that was kind of jockeyed and adjusted last spring in an effort to do that. Havre Public Schools did not get reimbursed for 14 support Fridays last year when it came time for transportation. So that, although it did end on the positive side, so we had a balance of $92,006.62 in the elementary district, as well as $45,944 in the high school district. So as we closed out transportation funds, it was in the positive. We just wanted to make you aware that at that point, we weren't receiving funding for 14 days.
Why didn't they get funded?
So what we did was then Moses and myself, I'm not sure if Holly was in on that one. I think she was. Scott, Leela. I wanted to see if there's a gap here. So I talked to Donnell at the state at OPI who runs transportation. So we hopped on a Zoom call with her, and at that time, Leela had been directed to not reimburse, put in for those days. Donnell said, nope. She said, is this just like a tutor thing? I said, no, this is one K-12 where our teachers are teaching, right? We have on the Sport Fridays, we have everyone coming in. We're providing services for kids. They're getting fed. We're running transportation. So she said, there's no reason you could not then get reimbursed for those days if you're running a full scale school day. Even if it's shorter, we're still running the full route situation. So that will be rectified this year in terms of putting in those dates. So that'll provide additional funds next year. Over the past 3 years, the HPS accrued a negative account balance in the high school athletics over 146,000. So that's one when we get to the next section, I'll talk about kind of rectifications with that. Havre Public Schools was over budget in high school district general fund of $215,437.14. We were also over budget in the elementary district fund, $270,850.49. And then also in the elementary district retirement fund, we had a negative balance of $54,820.07. Again, when we move to those next sections, we'll kind of talk about trends that Moses and I see and ways to adjust this moving forward. School food service, we continued to lose money, which appears to have occurred over the past 3 years as well. About 3 years ago, when we looked at balances as we closed up here in food service, we were sitting cash-wise at about 200,000. And this year we were down $184,905 in cash. We also had 2 teachers that were funded solely from ESSER dollars that we've got a plan for. And then also, we were also funding an extra counseling position that was to be split over 2 buildings. So those were some of the areas outside of the ones that I've mentioned. The other funds closed out on the positive. But I wanted you to make sure everyone was aware of the areas that, as we finished out, had some negative issues with, or were in the negative that we need to make sure we got a plan for moving forward. Okay. So as we move forward into this next year, we jump back up. We talked about the daycare. Where we're looking to come in at this next year would be about $10,700, which would completely cover the program, as well as give us some money for some supplies and related expenses as we move forward with that program. So we feel good about that threshold. The nice thing about the daycare is too, for the first time in 3 years, we're actually full of capacity. So we've got 17 kids, all set, ready to go for the upcoming year, which is awesome, which really justifies also then having 2 providers versus just one there. So that's a good thing. So we're actually at full capacity with that. So that was nice. To jump back then also to the top section. Oh, good. Yeah, good, Jim.
You did that just through adjusting that daily rate.
Yes. Yep.
And made it comparable to what
Yep.
the rest of the
The
community is
increase
on.
was $5 a day.
Yeah.
Based on state averages still.
Yep. And we really tried to do that, Tim. Like Holly went out and she found out kind of where it was from that threshold. And then we had Rose and Jenny kind of look internally in terms of what does that match up? So we tried to kind of use a good number in between that wasn't too excessive, but at the same time get us to where we need. So, yep, we felt like we found the right amount and we're actually full. And so
How does that work just in terms of our daycare? Are we like a state licensed daycare, and then I know there are certain numbers that you have to abide by per kid, number of kids per caregiver, and so what is our kind of maximum kiddos that we can have in the daycare?
they could have that threshold. She said as soon as we hit 11, they could actually be at, I think, 11 to 1.
Okay,
So we could have this past couple of years actually only had 1 provider.
they had like 12. Okay.
There was like,
And then that rate drops a little lower if it's like 0 to 2.
Sure.
It just depends on
The age, yeah, okay.
and then 2, if you remember the contract, we also adjusted it for then like our substitutes, people coming in for the day. So they have the ability, just depending on what that looks like, if we have that flexibility.
Yeah, that's
To use that. So Holly and I tried to kind of go across the board and adjust them so that it's a good fair representation versus just saying, well, the state says we could go this way.
Yeah.
Okay. We talked about the transportation, our plan with that, so that's really excellent news. Those extra 14 days will make a big impact. In terms of the athletic account, and of course this was one, and that was the one that was also on the audit finding, right? That was our one audit finding that they said you have to have this rectified by June 30th. You can't continue to carry this negative account balance. So the account as we went into before we transfer money into starting that account, as we closed that out with Shanna, we left a cushion in there of $24,876. Been finalized. Make sure we brought that 146,000 count up. Mark is going to present tonight some measures that we're putting in place. So we're going to be coming to you. He's going to talk about GoFan, FHS, as well as the financial structure and what we're looking to kind of adjust both activity passes, play to pay. Also then our travel, we're going to really go after hotels that are not only providing breakfast, but that we're getting the right discount for. We're asking for a threshold in terms of when we go out, how much our coaches are allowed to give kids per day. Let's say we're on an overnight trip. Now we're going to have a standard that we come across the board. And we kind of talked with Moses on some things he's seen before, like in Chinook, kind of what is that standard they use for daily rate for kids when they're out traveling. This last year, moving to Havre, I mean, I saw that our kids, when they're out on the road, it really depended on the coach. And we were then, meals sometimes very excessive in terms of what our kids would eat. You know what I mean? And they should always be fed well, but we have to be conscious of how much is going on with that. Right? It's just something we should do. Now, of course, also qualifying for CEP, right? We're going to be able to also take a look at it. If we have a group that's going out leaving in the morning for lunch, call it 48 hours, have sack lunch, available for kids. So the measures that Mark is going to cover when he presents tonight too are going to really kind of break down in detail what that looks like. We're asking for approval on those tonight, just based on the need to start moving in the right direction with our activities. We have successful teams, which is awesome. So they travel a lot. We go to all the tournaments, which nobody doesn't want to do, right? We're all in favor of that. It's amazing. But at the same time, us going into that because of that extensive travel, we can't also just be going in $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 a year.
Along those lines, so I know on our reports that we get, each activity has a line item and a budget. And is each coach at the beginning of their season then given a budget, and are they responsible then for kind of making sure they're operating within that budget? Or is that Mark and Mallory's responsibility?
It's really more Mark and Mallory. And the
Okay.
ones that you see, like those individual ones, which we had to go through then and clear up, those are ones typically where they're going out fundraising. So they've got they'll go out, they'll run a fundraising project, and they've got money in there if they want to
Okay.
do something extra with their team, their kids.
Okay.
So really, Mark gets, and in this case, right, he gets about 150 bucks for athletics. Is that about right? Yeah. Yep. So he has to take and make sure then hotels, all those things are all filtering to everything that comes out of that. So he factors that in, but yeah, good question. Okay. In the high school district, to jump back up into the first section where we were over budget, the overstaffing issues will be examined on a continuous basis. So each position, as those come out, when you're over the 200 plus thousand that we were, Holly and Moses and I've had conversations about looking at when people leave, each one of those positions we need to take a look at, right? The little things. If you have a 30-year teacher leaving, can we hire an incoming teacher at substantially less money, to replace that spot? Are we overstaffed in another building? We could potentially shift and move the teacher up, or the reverse to cover, So we're going to have to start looking at that. And a lot of, as you saw across the state, a lot of overstaffing issues occurred during COVID, right? Just in the effort of trying to do the best job for kids and all the different platforms we were using. And Havre was really in a fantastic spot. If you looked across from Laurel to Billings, do you name it? I mean, even Laurel cut, 14 positions just like that. And so there's been a wide scale of overstaffing issues that kind of occurred. And so as we move forward in the high school district, we just have to be thoughtful with that. We also, as you can see, when you look at this, Dustin, myself, Holly, Shanna, and now Moses have also game planned on how can we maybe recode and look at what we're doing right now with our current staff. So for instance, Jeremiah Nitz, we were able to take a third out of his salary now from the safety director for our district. So we're able to take a third of that, pay that out of district funds versus just the high school. Mark Irvin now is also not only the activities director, but he's also our 504 coordinator. So we can take a third of his salary, recode that from the district to use out of that. So that created some flexibility. We also had 14 teachers that were working with students in alternative type settings that we can get title funds to use. And then, so all of those little adjustments can help bring that threshold down from that 90% threshold that you don't want to be up above, and that includes that 80%. So we've enacted that in terms of what we're going to do moving forward. So that was kind of one of the plans for high school. And then in the elementary district, the overstaffing, again, a big concern with this. But we had, for instance, like with, in this building in particular, when we weren't able to fill then that middle school math position, we were able to take that because then even one of our counselors in here that we picked up was being funded solely out of ESSER. We were able to take the money that we didn't fill from that to cover that in the elementary district. And so, like in the high school district, then with Miles Laird's salary, instead of coming out of now ESSER, we were able to use title. So we've tried to really shift around and be thoughtful of that rehiring process. What kind of people? Do we need that many numbers of pairs per building, right? So we can meet those. We're always going to meet for accreditation standards, the thresholds we have to, but we don't have to exceed them down to a number that is so small that it's actually putting a huge burden on us. And so as Moses and I kind of explored, the budget, how did it get to this level? Those were a lot of things that we kind of saw and came up with and plans to rectify for the future. Okay. In terms of the retirement fund, when we get to that, Moses will talk with you about the retirement fund. Food service has been overstaffed, occurred unmonitored spending, had no plan when it came to holding families accountable for their food balances. And so as we move forward with a new lady in the copy center, Melanie Sneckel, so when we move forward with her, part that we put into her job description is she's going to be calling on all account balances. So on one end, now qualifying for the next 3 years for the CEP, that's going to help us move forward with not accruing also a big debt in terms of that. But when students go, let's say, to use a la carte services, now if they're not paying on those, she's calling families instantly and recouping that. That just didn't happen for a series. So that's a provision we're making. We looked at just numbers of who we had in food service. That was another area that was staffed, and buying equipment was pretty rampant in probably areas that so that's where we're kind of, looking at how did that cash flow go from 200,000 to 186.
So the all,
3 years.
so the a la carte was, they were allowing kids to charge them, you have to understand.
They were.
Why don't we just do a prepay and keep the balance? Move to maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I think now we've got the right steps to handle that, where before it just, they weren't. Sure. Yeah, and I think we have the right people in the right positions now.
Some training. That's monthly. There.
And we've looked at some little things. I know, Tim, we had a discussion too on the portion sizes. Because that was a concern.
Getting the same.
Right. You know what I mean? Because then kids are
Complaints about
kids
the
are
portions, too.
kids are feeling
Yeah.
hungry. So we
Yeah.
went through and I had conversations with Rachel, and so she's going to adjust it so the kids are getting hungry portions. They
get
within
older.
the guidelines as they get older, they get portions, which will help with some of that too. Because she goes, I agree, they're pretty small.
Yeah, I mean, like Carter as an 8th grader was getting the same meal as my 1st grader was getting. And I was like, why is he charging all these meals? He got it for free. It's like, thanks.
Yeah.
question is not fun, and it's not. So I guess my question is, are we supporting, is it Melanie? Are we providing some support or training for her? in
Yeah,
order
I'm
to
actually meeting with
help
her this week.
Okay,
Yep, because you're right.
Yeah.
And we're also like from the high school level, you know, I think Baskin and I talked about this too moving forward. We always have, like, when I was going through graduation's gonna look like with the kids, I had my secretary there, right? And she had no qualms of calling then, and these students, when we're done with graduation practice, I need you to come see me. You will not receive the diploma until this is paid. And it was amazing. Those accounts got paid before they finished, right? So we kind of have an end game catch.
I guess what would be the problem with prepaid accounts, cash or credit cards? Like what are,
You know, typically right now, they go on right onto IC, and so they can totally do that, Jimmy. Yeah, they can completely do that on that.
You do get a, like, we prepay our kids.
Mhm.
lunch
Yeah, you can
all
totally
the
do
time,
that.
but, inevitably there's comes a time where you're like, how the heck do they go through that much
Right.
in food? But they do,
Yeah.
and, then you get, last year you would get an email notification that, hey, I think it was when she hit like maybe five.
Or even $10 left.
Yeah,
there,
it starts-
it starts letting
It starts letting you know.
Yeah, so it, but they never like cut my kids off from continuing to use it. I mean, even if we didn't see the email and they were late at $25, my kids just kept on spending. They didn't.
Sure.
They had no idea what.
Yeah.
I don't, do the lunch ladies actually see that? Does it come up? But
Yeah, I was gonna say,
the POS system, once you
Yeah.
put the number in, the child's
balance.
yeah, and then they're
are they not? My kids never told me. I mean, that could be my kids.
I think all kids, like, I know Roma, or she didn't tell us either. And there were times where then Aaron was like this, I better put some lunch money on it, bro. You know what I mean? Like,
And mine, I think it's how you set up parent portal too, because mine emailed, but it also texted me too.
Yeah, I mean, we would get those, but they didn't seem to come for a while.
Yeah, and I'm not getting emails or texts, either one.
sometimes
So-
it's in the setup.
Okay, I'll have to go in and look at it.
Yeah.
But I mean, them just like slipping them a note saying, hey,
Right.
you're at the end.
What about like no food for you?
No, don't do it for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's wrong
No,
with that?
Yeah, no.
Isn't it a la carte? Like,
Yeah.
go get in the free
Well,
lunch.
and
line.
that's, and that'll be, like you said, Jake, that'll be some of those conversations that say, hey, because we're providing free breakfast and lunch now, if this isn't current, you don't have this option.
There were
least
some
it's
last year who would
synchronized.
have breakfast and
Right.
they would go and have breakfast again at advisory because they were hungry.
Right.
And the advisory teacher didn't know what they needed before, and so then you're being charged for that.
So, yeah,
Better system.
that's it. Yep. So accountability has been the theme of it. So then as we close out, we kind of talked about what we're doing with counselor and teacher. And then we also have that ability with that extra counselor that I talked about to back into the teaching realm next year. So when you kind of take a look at this whole system and over the course of spring, as you know, just based on the circumstances we had, I got a whirlwind education on all of this stuff. And I got to work with Shannon, which is fantastic. Working with Moses has been really great. So there's been a lot of information and planning to do as now we go forward, because at the end of the day, I have no intention of having a school district at that level. We want to be at the top of our game, not only educationally, but in all the systems that we do here within the district. And so that's why we've really, Molly's been great. She's been jumping in and learning stuff on the fly, is to set up systems now that we're going to be able to be accountable and be able to speak to all of you when we go into next year and say, hey, here's how we closed out. Here's where the budget is this year, and be in a way different setting. So that's kind of the end game. Real quick, we'll take a look at then the projects, and then I'll let Moses kind of talk some stuff on his end. So for 24-25 on our projects, so as those close out, I wanted you to be aware of kind of where some final payments were. and what that's, where they're coming from, how that's looking like. So Amoresco, they're holding back that final payment until we're completely done with FICO services, buildings are up and ready to go. So that final payment is about $376,000. So we actually are going to have principals and custodians meeting on Thursday to look at control systems. How does that work? How can they navigate and operate that? And then Scott's going to meet with his one head of maintenance. It's going to really kind of run that from a big picture overview of the entire district system for the controls. And then the individual buildings will kind of have to go to where they can make those small adjustments during the week. Cafeteria tables, as you know, that we approved with ESSER. So we will be receiving those at the end of October. We have then the COPS grant. So that, as you remember, as we are shoring that project out with test, that was all based on, we got the 376,000, and then that remaining balance, that 178,924 is coming out of building reserves. Stage project, the 5,000 came out of ESSER. The roof for the high school, which just finished up this week as well, that 20,000 came out of ESSER. The computers, interactive TVs, Chrome parts, licenses, that all came out of ESSER, about 720,000. Cat 6 cabling for the buildings all came out of ESSER, that was 79,000. That's all completed. And then the high school gym walls. So this was a project that last year Krasky was working on with Brad. And so to kind of update the walls in the gym, we're starting to look kind of rough, is then we updated the floor and some of those features. Dustin kind of wanted that for the past couple of years, and that was going to be split, the 20,000 for that, and they're going to actually start on that here in about this next week. Dustin was saying they're hoping to, is going to be split between the Cook Fund and then also the building reserve money. So,
And is, are all our ESSER projects fairly well wrapped up then?
correct, yes, they are, Jake.
Okay.
Yep.
And how's Tess doing?
Test has done this, from what I've seen, Jake. They've done a fantastic job. They came in today and provided. Polly and I were there in Sunnyside. They did a great training for our principals and secretaries, very in depth on how to use the system and all that. And I felt like they did a really good job.
And then they went to the individual buildings, and you can program in all of your schedules for any possibility that you might have. If you have a late start, if you have assemblies, and then you can just click those, your support Fridays. You don't have to go and manage Excels or anything. And you can zone out certain areas. So if you have one, your building is maybe fourth grade, and developing for them, you can really there's intercom systems in any section. If they need help, they can push their button and you can hear wherever they're at in the room.
Are they gonna be done on schedule?
Oh yeah.
Or
You're like a year ahead of schedule,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, we don't have to be done until 2025.
Yeah.
September of 2025. So they're definitely going to be. They're definitely way ahead of schedule.
And will everything be operational then for the schools to start using it from the first day of school?
Other than middle school,
Yep.
end of September.
End of September, yeah, just
Great.
based on
Other
back order.
schools.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it sounds like there's some payments being moved back on FICO, is that correct? So I
Right.
understand. Is that something that we can discuss right now? Or?
Yeah, so I've been navigating on Tuesdays with that system, and there's been a lot, and I understand like with the magnitude of the project too, there was like a lot of different little things to calibrate, and so we kind of know that then as we go into this year is going to be where we're going to have guys coming in and out and making sure the system's working properly and how does that function, so we understand with that. But it's been one that Amoresco, for us having through that project, was really good because they've said, nope, you got to get, you got to meet some timelines on this, right? It was supposed to be then at the beginning of June, then it was July, and then in this past few weeks, I've been on there every Tuesday with the same guys. The school date is approaching. I've got teachers coming back on this date, principals are coming back on this date. Like, you have to expedite this and get it done, because they're gonna have expectations when we start the year that we're still not super hot all the time. So that's been one where Amoresco's done, Marcus at Amoresco's been very diligent about saying, when this is, you know, completed to the standard we agreed upon in the contract, we'll receive the final payment.
Like, trying to remedy the situation then, and they end up.
Yep, and so they feel like we're at a point which is really good. We've all been really pushing to say this Thursday, you know, as you know, teachers, everybody's gonna be back, you know, on Monday. We gotta meet and do walkthroughs and have people understanding how the system is gonna work, so it kind of came right to the very end. Yeah, but we also understand too, like I said, the magnitude of that project, this year, they're probably gonna have to be coming in and, you know, fix some things along the way, you know, but as long as we're at the stage where we can start using it, that people are feeling the benefits of it. You know, that's always the hard part, is then they get upset and they're like, why did we spend any of this money to do this?
Yeah.
The building's still hot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do we do
What was
this?
the point?
What was the point?
The COPS grant on the building reserves, that was the money that was required match to
Correct.
leverage that grant.
Correct.
Right.
Yep.
And then have we heard anything back from Fairpla Development? on
Not
that?
yet.
Okay.
Yeah, no, not yet.
Yeah.
Paul sent me over in July that we ended up being approved for like 16 million, which was awesome.
Awesome.
And since we're the largest partner, we would have the biggest share of that money if we get that grant. Havre Public Schools would have the biggest portion for our building, so that's awesome. So he was hoping here this fall. Then on that, right,
Announce what you.
right. Nope, not yet. But yeah, but so he couldn't say exactly, but he said we have a very nice share. So, which was good, you know, because, you know, as we kind of talked about, there's a couple other roofs we could work on. There's a couple of boilers. So there was some stuff that if they could fund that would be, we would really feel that our schools now, with these other adjustments that we've now done in this past year and stuff, are sitting pretty good. This middle school, I mean, came on out of nowhere, as you know, with the Lake Havre Middle School this spring. When that rain came in and stuff, and then we had those 16 leaks, and Kurt and I were like, cow, that was the roof on this needs attention. And before then, we thought Highland Park should be the next roof, but now it's definitely the middle school needs to be the next roof. Right. Because those 16 were just, they were coming down through the pillars. It was a lot. And Clark was great. He showed me around that next day, and I mean, he was on it. He had panels ripped open and fans running, and I mean, yeah, he was on it. But it was like, wow. Okay, want to go up on the roof? Let's go check it out. So, yeah, but that's definitely the next one. But anyway, so that kind of gives you then how we closed our plans moving forward, and then also projects this year that we want to wrap up and make sure that this goes out right. So.
Now, I'm totally off topic, and I'm sure you don't have enough to discuss. I'll bring this up.
Okay.
Do we ever figure out anything about the water line going back here? Did you ever talk to Scott?
So
Is that
Scott,
something
yeah,
that-
so interesting enough, and Tim and I've had some of these conversations. We are gonna have on the September meeting. So, we're gonna have a discussion about water and wells and that kind of thing. We had Scott said there were 3 previous attempts to get wells in at the middle school that all failed.
Oh.
Yeah. So he said they have had that. They believe they have to go further back up higher to get into water. And so, he's got some plans and he's kind of working on that. And so some of the stuff we talked about is, what would it take, Scott, to then get wells? Let's say like we have at Sunnyside and the high school, for all buildings, would that be feasible? And then also one for Blue Pony Stadium. So if we run into water situations in the future, our fields for our kids are safe and are able to maintain, as well as then we run into water shortages like we did, rather than my 18 million cases of water all the time. We can just handle within our own system, because then we've got the water machines, kids can bring in water bottles and refill. So Scott's working on that right now, and he's gonna present that in September.
Was there anything, I know that they haven't obviously charged this water line back there yet, but I know that was brought up when that water line was first being ran through, they had to get right away for that. they asked if we wanted to have a tap into that. Is that feasible to do anymore? Is that practical? Have you looked into that at all?
Yeah, yep, so that'll be part of that discussion, because I know that's one that's come up too. Yep.
Yep.
But yeah, so that'll be in September along with some transportation. So.
And so what I gave you guys was two sheets, kind of just my
address of working from.
just my budget, my budget report for you guys. I try to give on those front pages, you'll see the elementary. And what I try to do is just try to show you guys what last year's budget was compared to what this upcoming budget is.
So the 24 was last year?
24 was last year.
Oh, 25 is this year?
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
gotcha.
Yes, sir. Yep. And so I just, on the back of that sheet, I gave you guys just a little bit of budget notes, from those 2 years that I can kind of give you guys, historical data from last year. I gave you guys enrollment there, taxable valuation, mill levies. With the mill levies, I try to keep it, the increase as low as possible. Just to show the public, hey, we're doing our best to work with the money that we have right now. We're not gonna permissive levy so much out of you guys. Just giving back to the taxpayers. Those numbers can always just be adjusted as well. When we put in, that was number 5 on those budget notes. When we put into the newspaper, what we put in for projections, it's about 5.99 levies. And what I did, if you see that front page here, the levies from here to here, they just increased 4.3. And the projection that we had, that we went out to the public for, was 5.99. So I just try to keep it as low as possible, that low increase in that mill levy. I even put in the oil and gas revenue that you guys received coming from 2020 to 2023. You see, those values can vary. It just depends on a lot of factors there. And then just going back to just those overages, I want to tell you guys that I did dip into our interlocal multi-district funds. Starting balance in there was about 1.3 million. Now it's down to about 5. So I just want to give you guys a heads up on that's how I fix those errors where we were over. And that's why Brian was saying a lot about overstaffing. A lot of the overages that I saw was in the salaries. And then just with the elementary retirement, I kind of just give a good estimation on how good the retirement fund is going to be. I increased it a little bit from last year because we went over 60,000 in the elementary school district for retirement. So I kind of just made some numbers, gave a good estimate, looked at the increase that teachers were getting, and kind of just tied in the TRS, ERS, making sure that it's going to be enough for the next school year going forward. For high school, the same thing. The biggest thing there, guys, is just the total mill levies. The notice that we put in March, it was for 5 points, so 5.66 mils increase, but I kept it around at 1.96 in the high school district.
So on that multi-district agreement, we should be able to backfill.
In the interlocal.
Interlocal.
Yeah.
In that interlocal, we'll be able to pay some of that back.
Put some back, yes, sir. That's the plan anyway. With Brian saying that we can kind of recode salaries, and change that it's not just coming out of one fund, it's coming out of multiple. Hopefully, there's money there. In the high school, we only went up about 60,000. We got our big jump in the elementary, which is going to help us out. The big jump was about 600,000 from the elementary from 1 year to this year. So hopefully, by the end of the school year, we have a little bit of something to put back into local. And I just like to keep that a big, basically a big savings for us. So just in case of anything like this.
Well, better not happen.
I hope. I hope. Yeah.
That's it.
It's
That's-
gonna
that's the
be,
end game.
we're gonna be a little bit mindful this year. It's gonna be a little tight, but we'll try to make it through. We'll make it.
Moses, can you talk a little bit and just educate me about like, when you look at the mill levies and you say, okay, we could permissive levy like on the high school, 5.66. We're gonna do, you have like 1.96.
Yep.
How do you go about thinking about that and kind of balancing that out, given that the high school budget, it sounds like is very tight? But I know that permissive levy can only be used for certain pots of
Yeah,
money,
yeah,
right?
Yep. Yep.
So are you kind of looking at it and saying, okay, what do I absolutely, like, kind of like what you said, do I absolutely need these kind of buckets where I can permissive levy? Or
Yeah.
can you talk about that a little bit?
I'm still learning a little bit more about
Yeah.
the permissive levies. Just the way I was taught was just keep those no levies totals, just, the increase as small as possible. It just shows to the community that you guys are doing the best that you can do with the funds that we're given. I wish we could permissive levy into the general fund, but
Yeah.
we can't. And like you're correct. The permissive levy, we can only do it on like transportation and such. But we did okay with our transportation. So just me being mindful, I don't want to pump up transportation if we don't need that money.
Especially with the extra 14 days.
Yeah, with the
Coming
extra
in.
14 days coming
Yeah.
in. So
So
we get
that
that.
makes,
And then what I went through is just what you guys, what you projected, like the changes in those dollar signs.
Mhm.
I made sure that, that's what we're permissive levying. Again, this is just an estimation. You guys are able to do whatever you want to do. But that's just kind of my mindset. with
Yeah.
That it's just to keep it low, keep it within what you guys estimated. The same thing that we try to do in Chinook as well. Just being mindful to the taxpayers.
which when Moses and I've had this conversation, it's been, I like the idea from saying anytime, especially right now, we can, work with our community, maybe give a little break here and figure out
Yeah.
ways to pay for it in another way. All the better, as you and I know, as we went out and you and Tim and I and hit some of the circuit of promoting, a potential voted. And it's tough.
Yeah.
You don't know what you may have to come back with in the future. And so,
Thank you for explaining.
There are about 3 areas of permissive levy, is that correct?
Yeah, so it's on that, okay? So you can do it on the bus appreciation tuition. Go ahead.
And that tuition is kind of the unknown.
Yes,
right,
that is.
Do our best guess, but
right.
truly know until the school year starts.
Right. Yeah, as we're, and one of the things, just to give you a heads up, I'm going to talk about a little bit later in the report, but right now, I mean, our enrollment is at 1,826 kids, which is huge, right? Like, so that's significantly up. So, and we're gaining enrollment every day. I mean, we still have, almost 2 weeks to go before school starts. And Kelly still has appointments booked. I guess not that much more than a week, but still, she's got appointments booked every day.
Yeah.
For
Where's the
enrollment.
influx coming?
We're seeing it coming out of, like, we kind of talked about it out of, we had Bear Paw, we had Chinook, we had North Star, we had families moving Havre. We're seeing, what was the other, what's another one of those schools up the country, Cottonwood? So we're seeing a big influx of students from surrounding districts. I talked to a family today and he said they weren't able to hire like 14 teachers at North Star. So he's like, from the averages, it's just ridiculous. Sense. So we're seeing just people coming and shifting over left and right to us, which, I mean, I think there's a variety of reasons, right? I think when providing the right things, I think when we came out in the paper with the accreditation report that all 5 schools are on the game, that was a big one. I've had parents comment that, like, they're now saying this is a place we should be. So I think that variety of factors is drawing people for whatever reason, but certainly a positive. It's a good problem to have.
Are any In the past, there's been times where we've been close to like cap that we can allow into like Highland Park or like due to class sizes where we either have to hire paras to cover those things or, you know,
As of today, we have 2 kindergarten classes that are over, so they're. And that'll ebb and flow too, because we might have some that don't come. We had talked about taking that extra teacher and putting them into first grade with a different department. But then their first grade is up to 160. So
and what's our,
that's just today,
what's our kindergarten?
Is it 120?
120 today.
Yeah.
And we have 7 teachers. That's 6 full. But there's still going to be quite a bit of registration. And kindergarten is a little bit different too, because a lot of times they wait until that
Yeah.
actual week
Yep.
of school starting,
Come in.
because they meet with parents all that week.
Kindergarten's always, that's.
Well, remember, and Tim, you and I were talking about that. We were like, oh my gosh, are they gonna show? And then all of a sudden the kindies are coming in left and right. You're like, okay. So, yeah. Yeah, so good.
And then at the high school, are we getting, are we getting any high school kids?
Yeah, we're sitting at about 5:30 right now in high school. So those numbers are good. I just went through and filled out the library variance paperwork, which will be on the September meeting. And I talked to Ellie at the state and said, if we're now, because before when Craig filled out the first one, Havre High School was like 501 and would drop to 470 by the time spring hit, right? So it was like, it kind of made sense with this. And I said, if we're now at 530 and we're closing in the 500s, does it, like, is this going to be worthwhile to go for it, or should we just try to send in? She said, honestly, Brian, with the shortages of staffing in the state, she goes, I say fill it out. She goes, probably get it to go, because there's such a shortage, people couldn't necessarily find those positions. So she said, I think you're close enough, do it. So, yep.
It's over 500, then you have that.
1.5, right? 1.5 at over 500. She said at 530, that's within it. You know what I mean? If you were like at over 600, be a lot tougher sell. But you could make the point to say we come very close to, which is what I put in then, 500 by the time the spring job hits. So, but overall with this, kind of like what Moses and I've tried to paint the picture, and all the little things that we've done, we're looking at ways just to be smart and thoughtful as we move forward. I told Tim, I said, even in the ceremony, the welcome back ceremony, we've cut that budget down in half, and we've tried to just look at all the just little ways that we can be thoughtful, so you don't ever get into a situation where you have to start drifting, create, when you have those, you have to risk people, and you send out notices, and people come in, and that's just, it's a bad situation. People then have really hurt feelings about the district, and a lot of times they get back, even if it could bring them back. So we want to be just thoughtful now going into this on A, do we really need that position? B, if we do, what are ways that we can do it financially a little bit easier? And now having really a good thoughtful team that's watching, observing what's happening with that, and eyes on, like Polly and I have been having conversations with the food service with Moses, like we've sat down in those groups and said, here's where we're at. Here's what we need to be focused on this year versus just kind of carte blanche with several areas. So.
Guys, I really appreciate the transparency, the thoroughness, not only saying we have a problem, but here's our plan to, and make adjustments. And I really like the plan.
Did we get any better answers?
So yes, so when we get to the multi-district, I was going to talk about in the board meeting, but I can share it with you right now, like kind of how that's going to go. So when we get into the multi-district, we're able to adjust it in 2 different areas. One, we can actually still pull this off with Rocky Boy, which was a huge one we found out, because it was very like up to that last meeting, it was like this. I don't know if you guys can even really do this. And it was like, you gotta be kidding me. We've been navigating back and forth
Yeah.
with the lawyer and both the school boards have approved this. Like, what are we doing with this? So the food service is gonna come and you'll see that in that portion. The food service is gonna be directly with Havre. So we then, and I saw Phillips signed agreement come back. So we brought in Holly and Moses and we brought in Philip and Jerry from the colonies. Talked about how that's gonna look, Rachel. So Rachel and Moses will go out to the colonies twice a year, once in the fall, once in the spring, to make sure they're meeting guidelines, so they have the paperwork. And we're gonna go directly with food service with Havre. We're not gonna involve Rocky. So we've got that link short of, which you'll see in the agreement. We adjusted the language in there, so when we go to approve that tonight, that's the adjusted language, that it's just us instead of the Rocky. The last one just came in that we got from OPI, which was that we, and this was Kelly's big concern, was she can't then take Rocky Boy's teachers, right, and plug them into her infinite campus. Like, how do we do this? So Rocky Boy's still gonna have them, they're gonna count the FTEs, they're gonna be contractors for Havre Public Schools. So that's how then we can navigate. They're still at Rocky Boy, but they're contractors for us. So then, in a sense, then we get the A and B money, right? And so then Moses, Scott Adams out of Rocky Boy, will work out the percentage of what do we give them A and B wise, for this whole pass-through payment system to it.
For salary.
Right, exactly, for salary. So we did find out that it is doable, but it was really kind of tricky to say, can we even do this? You know,
Yeah.
and of course that's a bad situation for the Rockaway teachers
Yeah.
because it's substantially less money for us than it would be for them. So we understand their deal with that. But I think we feel like
We're looking at like
Good one.
assessments, but OPI's
Yes.
on their roadshow, so she got back to me tonight, and we're going
Awesome.
to meet next week and talk about the assessments that they need to take at the companies to be able to do the credit.
So, then are they under a separate accreditation? Are they under our accreditation or Rocky Boys?
That's what we're going to. work
Okay,
with
that's what you're
OPI on,
trying to figure, yeah,
yeah, it's a good question, Kristen.
yeah,
It's a good
Because
question.
we didn't know. I mean,
Right.
before Rocky Boys kind of just done all of it.
yeah. And then because our students are getting free lunch, free breakfast, will the
They do.
right student, oh, that's awesome.
Yep.
It's all taken care of through the colony anyways.
Yeah. One more.
So I mean, does that
thing
just
for
mean,
those.
does that mean that
Yeah.
that we're just gonna be paying the colony whatever money that we receive reimbursement, we would those be got straight through the colony? That's
They only
correct.
wanted one pass-through spot instead of two.
Gotcha. Yep. So the food service aspects come directly from us.
Yeah. Yep.
And then, so the food service aspect, you'll just be sending somebody out there to actually look at portions and like, are you guys
Yep.
meeting the what kind of, there's caloric intake plus like an actual, what's being fed, certain servings of vegetables.
Right. Yeah, and there's a checklist for us to go through with them, and that's why we have to do it twice. So we go there the first time, and something needs to be corrected. We don't have the second time.
Are you gonna be like, is that FDA approved, or I mean, how are you guys gonna handle that?
Locally sourced.
I don't know if they're suing him for FDA approval.
Yeah.
But OPI has Harvest of the Month programs too, where they. It's kind of-
Yeah.
it's not good.
The next part is too, is Moses, was doing this, he's familiar with this from Chinook. So I was
We did
like,
this already.
Overrun, Moses and Rachel, those two, there are peeps going out there, so that was good.
Oh, I love it though. Like, the visits are always good.
You guys almost need a flow chart for all the different components of
Right.
this to try and track it.
To a certain extent, it's ridiculous and government's just getting in the way of the whole process. It's just like what they have going on works out there just fine. The teachers are
Right.
taking care of it and taking care of the students and doing a good job. The colony is happy with what
They're very
what
happy.
the services they're providing. They're only going through 8th grade, so they're getting the education they need, curtailed to what they need, exposed to what they need, getting fed from the colony that they get fed from every day. It's like, sure, just get out of the way. Like, I also understand some of the government works.
Yep, you're right. But anyway, yeah, so any other questions on the budget? Okay. We'll look to then, like I said, next Tuesday, then we'll have the approval meeting and kind of go through if we have any more information in terms of personnel. But, we'll shoot for that, and then, as you know, we have to have the approved budget over to the county commissioners by next Friday, the 23rd. So we'll have that handled, and we'll have the welcome back and all the big ticket events that we can maybe kind of be ready. So anyway, thank you guys. Garrett, appreciate it, man.
He's gone. He's been gone. He's been gone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Garrett.
I thought about almost calling in and soccer game, and just sticking it on mute. Like,
I know. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. He said, "Oh, I'll have my earbuds on, right?"
Yeah.
You obviously came sure.
I had to take a half-hour PTO. Brian got to hear about that.
Okay. I said, "Jake, appreciate it, buddy." Yeah.
And then Sydney, now look, it's done at 6. We could have started at 5:30, no PTO. Still gotten done in time for 6.
Had we have known, we would
It's
have
all
got
about-
the texting that occurred on the phone.
It's all about me.
Of Havre. Sorry, do I need to read? I call this board meeting of Havre Public School District 16 and 8 to order. Will Kevin please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it
Will the clerk please call the roll?
Yep, so we have trustee Ingram, Kristen, trustee Garrett on the phone, trustee Kevin, and Chairman Tim. For your members that are absent, we have trustee Tyler, trustee Kelly Compton, trustee Lorraine Larson.
That are absent, okay.
Absent.
Okay, welcome to the August 13th meeting of the Havre School District Board of Trustees. A copy of tonight's meeting agenda is on the table near the door. At this meeting, the board takes official action on agenda items. Items of information and discussion may also be on the agenda. Comments will be solicited from the audience throughout the meeting. Following the introduction of the agenda item, the board chair will recognize those who wish to speak to the item. If you have comments, please come to the microphone so that the board can hear you. Following input from the public on a given item, the board may ask questions, then public input will cease and board deliberations will begin. The public will be given an opportunity to bring to the board general questions and comments immediately following items of new business. In the public comment portion at our board meeting, the board may not take any action on matters brought to the attention of the board during this period unless specific notice of that matter is included in a properly noticed agenda. Therefore, in the public comment portion of the meeting, the board will not discuss or take any action, but may refer a matter presented to a future agenda. Thank you for attending our board meeting. Do we have any presentations today?
We do not.
Okay. Are there any agenda deletions or corrections?
None at this time, Mr. Chairman.
First up is the consent agenda.
I move we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Was there anything that we needed to highlight or?
Nothing in this one. No.
Oh. Since there's no corrections or anything to be taken out, I would entertain a motion for the consent agenda.
Mr. Chair, I would move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Is there a second?
Mr. Chair, I second.
It's been moved by Kristen and approved by Kevin that we approve the consent agenda as presented. Does any member of the audience wish to speak to the motion? Member of the board wish to speak to the motion? Would you do a roll call vote for us, Moses, since we have one on the phone?
So for just a motion or to approve it?
Yep, yep.
To approve it, since I can't see what Garrett's.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Garrett, do you approve? Garrett approves. Kristen, do you approve?
Yes.
Mr. Tim, do you approve?
Yep.
Kevin?
Yes.
Jake?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimous. Okay, safe return to schools.
Yes, there are no changes to the safe return to schools and continuity of service plan.
How long do we have?
It's a good question. I sent it out to legal to see if it's still applicable. You know, we still are flagging that on the website. So for right now, as we kind of closed out through ESSER, my guess would be until that whole process has been done, because they always go back and check when you go to do one of those amendments, to any of the funding, that you still have that posted. So that's kind of how then they're checking that it's still on there. So my guess is when that wraps up from ESSER, hopefully we'll get the go ahead that maybe we can be done.
Okay. On to agenda item D1, student handbooks.
Yes, I recommend the approval of the student handbooks at all school buildings within Havre Public Schools as presented in your packets. Just give you a little heads up with this process. So as we closed out my administrative meetings in the spring, as you know, the school climate committee, which we have a couple representatives from our trustees that are sitting here tonight, that were on that along with some of my administrative staff and teachers within the building. One of the big focus with that committee was that we were going to look to take those existing handbooks and find ways to kind of shore up what we're doing, whether that was in terms of discipline within the buildings, was there how parent expectations that we rolled out, just in similar trends, so that as you're transitioning from Highland to Lincoln to Sunnyside, some of those changes within the handbooks made sense. And when we communicate that to our parents, that you kind of have a threshold level of expectation within the different buildings. So in conversations I had in the August Institute with my principals, they relayed to me, I feel like they've got a great plan they took some time later that afternoon and just made sure that those expectations, both from students, sign-off sheets for parents, those things were in place for this year. So they were going after those climate committees kind of focus and objectives, but they had an idea to say, you know what, Brian, let's do it right this spring. Let's have those members from our different buildings kind of meet all together. So our goal with this as we move into the following year would be a K-5 handbook, if you will, and then a 6-12 that has a break between those levels, but also really kind of shores up those expectation and big picture things that happen in the building. So that's kind of the big picture moving forward. But right now in front of you is the handbooks. The principals are here in the audience. If you have questions.
Do any of the principals have things that they want to highlight for us on the changes? Or so if you, in your packet, in the middle school handbook, I won't highlight, we didn't make a whole lot of changes, but we did make a couple big changes. Go to page 12. We changed how our flow of our discipline referrals goes. When students when students get a referral, there was the 7-8 steps. We felt like not every referral is equal weight, and therefore we decided to do like we do with teaching, is have a matrix for how we grade, a rubric, or how we're going to grade kids. We're going to have a rubric on how we do discipline in our building as well. And so now it's very clearly outlined to parents. If I am insubordinate the first time, I got maybe 1 to 3 days of detention. If I am second offense on, let's say, failure to serve lunch detention, we have a 1-day suspension. So not everything is equal weight anymore. There's no guessing on our assistant principal's job of where am I gonna fall this in the steps. You know, step 1 was a major fight, but step 4 was talking back's never great to a teacher, but was an insubordination referral for talking back to a teacher. Well, now that's later on in the steps, so it's way more severe. Should talking back to a teacher be more severe than a complete disruption of a fight in a building? So once again, we just turn that into a matrix on page 12 and 13. So it's very outlined clearly on, you did this is what the consequence is. Another thing that we added to the handbook with the suspensions is something called reverse suspension. So we have in-school suspension, we have out-of-school suspension, and we have reverse suspension. We want to try to keep those kiddos in the building as much as possible. If in-school suspension is not doing its what it's intended to do, our second step would be reverse suspension. That is, parent, you have the choice. You can either come in and sit with your child throughout the entire day and, work with your child on promoting good behavior, or you can have OSS if you elect not to do that. So you got your choice. Are you going to come here and help us out, or your kid you're going to have to be at home with your kid? So we added in reverse suspension. Electronic devices. Before it used to say just put away. Now we have put away in locker. So we added the word in locker. What we ran into this last year is, cell phones were a lot better in this building. We didn't have a whole lot of cell phone issues, but like I said, what we ran into is kids would have them hidden in certain areas, and ultimately bathroom use went up a lot. So we were sneaking to the bathroom to be on our cell phone. So now we're just going to say they got to be in your locker. They can't be in your pocket. They can't be in your handbag. They got to be in your locker. And the last two things, we added public displays of affection into the handbook. We had some students and some staff members kind of feeling uncomfortable with some things that were happening in the building. So we're going to put a little ease to that comfort. There's some things where, this is about education. We don't need kids and adults seeing makeout sessions by the bathroom. So in a sense, we added PDA language into our handbook. And the last major change was drinks. We added the language, it has to be an airtight container, so our janitors don't have to constantly pick up messes from McDonald's cups or, other random beverages that get brought into our building. And then we are also putting an X on outside delivery services and energy drinks. Energy drinks just aren't good for kids if you look at the CDC. And so we're going to try to limit that. And delivery services this last year put quite the interruption to the educational process, because things were being delivered to classrooms, which we really don't need things being delivered to classrooms. Our kids are here to learn. So let's learn and bring it beforehand, put it in an airtight container, and life is good. So in a sense, just think ahead. Okay, don't be delivering stuff at 2 o'clock and taking away time from our teachers to teach. So those are our major handbook changes for this year. Any questions on those?
What was the primary thing that was being delivered?
The what?
What was the primary thing that you were seeing be delivered, just out of curiosity?
If I can say I'm not comfortable
That's fine.
putting out one of our town's businesses, because I do want to promote every business in our town. They do a lot of wonderful things for us.
Gotcha. No worries.
But at the same time, this just isn't the place to do that, I guess.
No worries. Sounds good.
So food was being delivered. Drinks were being delivered. Yes, and a lot of drinks. Not that it was a problem last year that I heard, but the year before, the clothing, did that go a lot better last year?
Clothing was a lot smoother last year. We took out a lot of the gray areas so that it wasn't, have them, is that took out the thought process, I think, on teachers' ends. I don't want to talk for them, but I think it took out the thought process on them. And then ultimately with new trends and new styles, there's this like athletic shorts for girls. That's just how they are. And it's not like, it just is what it is. The athletic shorts or running shorts are just this. So, or they were against handbook policy by not being so long. Now they're within policy, they're fine, they don't interrupt the educational process. The only thing we ask is wear them how they're meant to be worn. Don't curl them up so that they're even higher. So no, we really didn't have many issues with dress code this year. So. Awesome, Jim. Thank you.
Thank you.
Many of our other principals have anything they would like to highlight in their. If not,
Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion that we approve the handbooks as presented.
Mr. Chair, I second.
it's been moved by Jake and seconded by Kevin that we approve the handbooks as presented. Any member of the audience wish to speak to the motion? Any member of the board wish to speak to the motion? Moses, would you do a roll call vote for us?
So Mr. Garrett, do you approve?
Yes.
Mr. Tim?
Yes.
Do you approve? Mr. Kevin?
Yes.
Mr. Jake? Yes.
Okay, motion passes unanimously. Into item D2, the activity adjustments.
I recommend the approval of the GoFan program for the 24-25 school year, along with the monetary adjustments to our activities programs as presented. So as we move forward into the next section, I'm going to have our activities director, Mark Urban, come up. Included in your packet, you have some of those monetary adjustments that we were looking at moving to. We just wrapped up our budget session. So some of those things we were talking about and rational over the course of this past 3 years, where that athletics account ended up in. Mark's going to talk about some ideas and suggestions as we move forward with that. So we've had discussions throughout the spring and into the summer on what levels might look good, right? And so what Mark's going to present to you tonight is not only the GoFan program and the benefits with that, along with updates to cameras and then the monetary adjustments as well. So I'll let Mark jump in.
Good evening. I'll just kind of lay everything out, I guess, as Mr. Gum just said, and if you have any questions afterwards, please just ask. Just a few, not major changes, just a few, I would say, kind of modernizing changes in the program. First thing with the Pixelot cameras, those are more just regular maintenance, other than we just installed today, actually, the softball camera. We've never had that before, and that's just a way for us to be able to stream our softball games now on the NFHS streaming, like we do our volleyball, basketball, and football. So there was a very simple way to get a newer camera put up there. Cost us nothing. It was just part of our program that we have with NFHS. So got that done. We put a new camera, just replaced the one at the football field. The one that was there was getting older and the lens had some issues with it that were not fixable. So again, that was a free replacement. I guess it was that summer where you just kind of had to ask. And so got told yes on a few things and went for it. And then the only other thing is we did a little adjustment here at the middle school with a wireless score band system. It's just a little attachment to the computer that runs the streaming events for our camera here at the middle school. It'll just allow our sub-varsity and or middle school games, if they were ever televised, to you can see the score. It was just something I put it in last year at the high school, and it dawned on me I couldn't figure out why we didn't do it here. So it was just time to do it. It's just kind of a up-to-date thing. So yeah, so that's all that was. Just trying to get them all done at the same time, I guess. The fee schedule, we kept that minimal. We haven't done it. Well, I don't even know when the original amounts were set, to be honest. It's been a long time, I know, because I know my kids paid that original amount from last year. There are schools, they're paying up to $100 per sport, per kid per activity. I would say that's probably a little bit too much. We charged 25. We made a minimal increase of our pay to play fee. We bumped it to 35. Nothing really drastic. I guess I'll just go through the other ones. We looked at the activity pass for our students. Figured it should mirror that. We put it from 25 to 35, the family pass from 150 to 175, and that's for a household. And then the individual pass from 65 to 75. So for most of those, a $10 increase. And obviously to help with rising costs of running programs, our budget needed some fixing, some things that had happened over the course of several years. Feels like we're in a pretty good place right now with that. Fortunate to have all the support that we have with our community, but those are things that will help, that we can do to just offset a little bit and see if we can keep the train on the tracks with the budget, so to speak. I've talked to a few people about it. I've had no negative feedback on it. I've had a lot of understanding folks. We've actually had several people that already paid their fees and didn't even question it. So appreciate that from them. And then the other thing that kind of had been talked about is how do we, I would say, regulate a little bit of, food is expensive. How do we regulate some of the spending on trips? Come up with a plan for all of our programs to follow that I think is very reasonable and doable. We do spend quite a few overnights with all of our programs from time to time, just because of the distance, obviously, we travel. So we're going to implement a $35 per day overnight day. If you stay overnight the following day, if you play all day or involved in a tournament, a $35 limit. So they can spend that however they want. If they want to spend $10 on lunch and 25 on dinner, that's fine. And a lot of our coaches do that already or kind of understand that. We're hoping that amount will be enough. It should be. We're not going to be, eating at the Montana Club, but that's okay. We don't need to do that. Our coaches are pretty good. They'll go get a sandwich or a burger or something for lunch and then usually save the greater amount. They're just going to help us track and make sure that we're doing that a lot closer. That I think will help some. Trips over 200 miles where we stop and do feed our kids because that's such a distance to travel. An $18 limit for that. Anything under that, we generally just stop at a store or our kids take their own meals. We've done that for years. My kid, we packed lunches. That's what most of them do, but we will also stop. A lot of kids like to stop and grab something at a convenience store on the way home. That's generally what we do. We'll continue to do that. That's not a problem. And then we're also going to encourage, and our football team does this already, which is kind of nice, but our food service will make bagged lunches. And they're pretty good. I mean, there's a couple sandwiches, granola bars, fruit, water, juice, sometimes Rice Krispie bar. They'll put all kinds of stuff in there. And our kids will take those. They won't even eat the whole thing, and then they'll munch on them on the way back from a long trip as well. We're going to encourage some of that. Grab some of those, especially depending on when the bus leaves, though. It's a great lunch. So kids can have a lunch on the way down. We'll feed them on the way back. But then that's no cost to us because of the food service plan that we're in right now for the whole district. So going to encourage that. Some of our programs are already doing that. And I think that that will be something that helps as well. So I think we have a pretty good plan going forward just to kind of, I would, like I said, regulate. I think it's probably the way to look at it. Just some of the food costs will help with our budget area a little bit. You know, it's not going to go down any. There doesn't seem like it. So this is a way for us just to kind of keep it in check. GoFan. Now that's something that would be new. It is an electronic purchasing system. There are 89 schools using it right now. I've put it off for a long time. These are the guys that they call me the most. GoFan is actually a sister company of Play On Sports, which does all of the NFHS streaming. So I work with them a lot on different things, but most of the Class A and double, and I think all of the AA schools are there now. We would still have ticket takers at the door for people who want to pay cash. This probably isn't something that everybody is going to want to or even be able to do. It is very simple technology, but it takes people a while to get used to change. We understand that. But what it is good for is for those who do want to purchase a ticket in advance, they don't have to stand in line. It's on your phone. Our ticket takers, it's very easy to show them how to accept the ticket. You just push it and they can come through. Potentially, lines will move a little faster. That's what I'd like to see. Less change required because several people will use it. And we want to start out kind of low, or slow. The system will do a lot of other things that we could eventually look at adding in as far as like the selling of our season passes. That can all be set up through GoFan. However, we'll incorporate that in maybe a little later. I'd like to see how the system works, see what kind of service and support is offered by the company. I think it's going to be good. But the initial packet of just being able to sell our regular season games for whatever events we want, what I like about it is it comes with a couple of card reading an iPad and 2 card readers, one of which we could use at the ticket door if we wanted, but the other one for our concession stand. And so we could run everything through that as well at no cost to us. And there is no cost to us with the ticket. The ticket still sells at the same price, but if you do an online sale, there's a small fee. I think it's like $1 for whatever ticket is what it was. And then that's how the GoFan makes their profit. But the ticket price remains the same, so we don't take a loss on it. That's the only way that they make the money on it. The card readers and stuff are just part of the service. So in talking with our concessions manager, he thinks that's a good idea as well, just to be able to have that. We have a lot of people that ask when they're buying stuff, and if it'll help kind of speed up that process. We're not in a great location at the high school where we're at with our concessions. It is what it is, though. But I think that would help where we could maybe pay off to the side a little bit and get people through a little faster. Tapping that card's a lot quicker than making change. So many people use it now, including kids. Kids are a lot of the ones that ask us. They have the most money, so I feel like that's a way to tap into it. But anyway, so that's kind of what it is. Like I said, we could start off slow, kind of build and see if it's something that is a good thing that we could potentially expand. But it is just where everything is going now, and even high school athletics. It's interesting. And it can also be used if you wanted to set it up to sell tickets for your prom. It can service a lot of other areas. And so I think we can test it, play with it, and then we can expand and see if it's a good thing and a time saver and a resource saver down the road for other things.
And too, Mark, wasn't it one that we had the option if we wanted where kids could pay like passes on there too with GoFan?
Yeah, I talked about that. That we'd start out with tickets at first, and then eventually you could purchase passes, your family passes, your student. I mean, it could all be set up there in a separate folder, basically. So you kind of track which passes have sold the most and, you know, who's getting them. That was my question. How do I know who's gotten it then? If I have to go back and I want to see a list, yes, the name would show who's purchased what. We have detailed reports that can be run and that kind of stuff. So there's a way to track that stuff as well. And it's been around a while. A lot of schools, I mean, they're pretty big nationwide, and now they have this partnership with NFHS. It's just kind of the way things are going now. It's kind of interesting, just the changes in 25 years. But I think for us, it's a good way to get some things that we could use right now and help us at no cost, and then get a way to see if it's something that could be used down the road for bigger things and more things. And then it also allows our people, our community members, a chance to get used to it. But we would still offer kind of the old way of doing it, because sometimes that's, you know, just necessary for some of our fans, which I get that too. We want to be able to accommodate everybody.
So
That's,
quick question, sorry, just to clarify on the fees, when you say that it's no cost to us, so like when they say general admission ticket, $10, and they're gonna charge a $1 fee. So if I come to the gate and I have cash, say my ticket's gonna cost $10, but if I use my credit card through GoFan, it would be $10 plus a $1 transaction fee, right?
yep.
And
And
if
it
I
says
buy-
right on there.
Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't try to trick anybody.
Okay,
It'll say,
so if I buy popcorn for $2 and it's 3% at the concessions, I'm gonna have a 6 cent transaction fee, basically.
no, I think the price that you pay $5 for a hot dog or a hamburger or whatever, that's what you're gonna be charged.
Okay, so then we're,
If there is a percentage based on that, that is just for us to be able to use it. If you paid for a ticket, there is the fee for the ticket purchase. But it was never told to us that there's a fee for using a card like at your concession stand.
well, it says in the proposal concessions, they're gonna charge a fee of 3% plus 30% per transaction.
Oh, okay. now,
So-
the credit card charge or
Right,
whatever.
right. So that's what I'm trying to clarify. So is the popcorn $2, but there's a 36 cent
Yeah, whatever, what
transaction
we went
fee
through 6 cents on it or whatever.
plus the 30 cents per transaction? Like, is that what you're saying? So Havre Public Schools still nets the $2 for
that
the popcorn?
Before we would implement that, I can see the transaction, the little bit fee, but I don't know about the 30-cent transaction fee. No, that wouldn't go to us, but I don't know that we want that to go to a customer either.
Right.
So that information before we would implement, I would want to clarify that
Yeah,
with them
okay.
first. I know there's the smaller fee that you're talking about, like the 3% or whatever, but
Okay.
for all on a bigger transaction, I guess wouldn't be as noticeable, but if you're just buying a $2 water, and you have to- you know what I mean? Yeah, then that could end up being a little bit more. I'd want to make sure that, and not everybody will use it. I guess the people that are willing to, they would have that available to them, but that's why we're also going to offer the other stuff. But as far as the transaction fee, the bigger amounts, I would want to make sure and know for sure what that looks like with them before we
Okay.
implement that.
I just don't want to see like our booster clubs start losing money from this because they're having to absorb that. Because if you, in the example of the $2 popcorn, that's actually comes out to 18% fee, then that they're getting cut.
With the charge, right?
With the
that
charges,
charge,
yeah.
Exactly, yeah. So that's why I said, I know where the tickets, it's the one and it's on there, it's clarified on
Okay.
there, it says. The Booster Club though is not, they wouldn't use this.
Okay,
So they only sell at the football games,
okay,
and then also they sell at the 9C tournament. And they wouldn't use GoFan.
okay.
Yeah, they have a separate
Okay.
accounting system it's different.
Okay.
Chair, I move to approve the presentation as presented.
There a second?
I would second.
So moved by Kevin and seconded by Kristen that we approve the presentation as presented. Does any member of the audience wish to speak to the motion? Any member of the Board wish to speak to the motion? Is Garrett still on?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you do a roll call?
Mr. Garrett, do you approve the motion? Ms. Kirsten?
Yes.
Mr. Tim?
Yep.
Mr. Kevin? Mr. Tyler? Mr. Jake?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimous. Agenda item D3, the Right Colony adjustment.
Go ahead and click you on that. Thank you. So D3, I recommend the approval of the adjusted language and procedures in our multi-district agreement with Rocky Boy Schools and the Hooterite Colonies. In the agreement, if you move to the second page, we kind of talked about within our budget meeting some of the adjustments with this. So you'll notice now under section 3, obligation of Havre, when you move down to letter E, it has provide all necessary statewide testing and survey related materials to Rocky Boy educators. So that line has been added in. Polly talked a little bit about that she and I have called then with Cedar Rose at OPI to when we had that meeting with them. That was another aspect of what Havre's obligation would be that we would provide then the testing, the ALL surveys, the home tests, or the home surveys, along with then the statewide testing that we do with all of our students here at Havre Public Schools. And so we're going to navigate with Cedar Rose on what does that facilitation look like, and would that be where, you know, let's say maybe Holly went out once or twice a year, similar to how Moses then and Rachel are going to go out, and just whether, you know, present the materials, talk with them about how that would look, and then, you know, from the now pretty much everything, I mean, it's electronic, so she would be able to, I'm sure, see the results as they come in and monitor it from that angle. We'll have that facilitation, same as we're doing with food service, where we're going to have the connection with the Rocky Boy teachers, and we were able to do that through that meeting. And then the next letter that has been adjusted in there now is G, and it says, as permitted by law, Havre shall provide all school foods pursuant to the National School Breakfast and Lunch Program, and shall comply with the requirements of such program. So that also has been adjusted now that that's Havre's obligation versus Rocky Boy's. And we talked about that now that we're the direct kind of feed in with that. And Moses and Rachel will be out there monitoring to make sure they're meeting the required food quality index and check and make sure we're in compliance with what we're doing with the food that's being administered to the colony students. But those were the two ones now that we've kind of went through those last hurdles with OPI that we need to adjust that language. And then based on your approval tonight, we'll make sure, as this has been sent out to the lawyer though, that as you read through the entirety of the multi-district, we'll finish adjusting some of the language at the end of it to make sure that it's updated and where it needs to be. But we're just asking for your approval for the policy.
Any questions or clarifications on that? If not, I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion that we accept the adjusted multi-district agreement with Rocky Boy Schools and the Hooterite Colonies as presented.
Here a second. So moved by Jake and seconded by Tyler that we accept the adjusted multi-district agreement with Rocky Boy Schools and the Hooterite Colonies as presented. Does any member of the audience wish to speak to the motion? Any member of the board wish to speak? All those in favor, raise your hand. Motion passes. Then item D4.
I recommend that Box Elder School District 13G be permitted to enter our district to pick up students. So when you look at this agreement, it's similar to the ones we've seen with North Star and Davie and other schools when they come in for pickup of students. So there's nothing unique about it outside of just seeking your approval to come in for pickup only.
I'll entertain a motion.
I'll second.
By Tyler and seconded by Kristen, that we approve. Box Elder School District. School District as presented. Any member of the audience wish to speak to the motion? Any member of the board wish to speak to the motion? Please raise your hand. Motion passes. With that, this brings us to the public comment portion of our meeting. This is an opportunity for any member of the audience to bring to the attention of the board questions or relevant comment concerning school district matters on the agenda. The board may not take any action on matters brought to the attention of the board unless specific notice of that matter is included in the properly noticed agenda. Therefore, in the public comment portion of the meeting, the board will not discuss or take any action, but may refer a matter presented to a future agenda. If you have comments, please come to the microphone so the board can hear you. Are there any persons present wishing to speak at this time? If not, agenda item E1.
Okay. So the first one I'd like to talk to you about is with our accreditation status. And so as you're aware, we've I've kicked out some Pony Post information and tried to keep you updated with how the accreditation process went. Just wanted to just kind of reiterate in case we had some members that weren't able to access the email, or just make sure everybody was on the same page with that. So the good news is if you were able to see that in the highline today, it kind of highlighted all the schools throughout the highline of where they were sitting at. And so we achieved regular status, which is that highest threshold in all of our schools from that overall score perspective. So really good news in terms of that. The work our principals and our teachers are doing in all the buildings is making a difference. One of the subsequent results, as we've started to see, that I believe is a factor, right? There's always numerous factors when students are coming into your district, but when you're doing different things that are positive, students want to be there, right? Their parents want to be there. And so we're seeing really good boosts in our enrollment. We talked about that a little bit prior to this meeting with the 1826. So those numbers are trending in the right way. And our scores from the different buildings all reflected that regular status, which is really good news. If you noticed on our one school on Highland Park, that was our one school that had an MD, which was a minor deviation, but still received a score because they got 2 out of 3 of an overall rating of regular. Haley and I have been in contact back and forth. We talked to Ellery Bressler and had the chance before the deadline, which was Monday. So last week we submitted. I did the submission at OPI based on information on class size. So the only reason it had an MD was at that K1 level if you have numbers that are over that 20-to-1 threshold. And so Haley was able to provide, her framework of how she had para-staffed in classes to show that actually we did meet the correct threshold. So they said, hey, you know what, if that's the case, go ahead and they shot me the form and let's try a submission, Brian. So Haley and I moved forward with that. So we're waiting to hear back. Like I told Haley, the overall score was still a regular, but I found Haley to be like this. Nope, let's do it. Okay, fair enough. So we move forward to see if we can get that MD wiped off. But yeah, very proud of all of our schools and staff there. They're doing a great job.
Questions, comments on that? We'll move to agenda item E2.
So the next is the community eligibility provision. And so I just met with Tim Leeds recently on this. So you should see on Thursday an article about this come out in the Havre Weekly. Just kind of outlines what this looks like. So with community eligibility provision, so I'll just kind of read you as I printed off some guidelines on what that looks like. So the process now has changed. So it says, rather than collecting school meal applications to make individual student eligibility determinations, schools that adopt the CEP are reimbursed using a formula based on percentage of students and automatically qualify for free meals based on the household's participation in specific means tested programs. So how this kind of looks is when we first started out with this program with free meals, it started at Highland Park. Then it moved to our elementary schools, meaning just K-5. And then we moved into now where we have all schools at Havre Public Schools that qualifies. So a couple things happened. One, they lowered the threshold. So that standard, which was at 40%, down to 25. So that allowed all of our schools to get in. But at the same time, when we took a look at last year, as we closed out the year, we were sitting at 42% free and reduced. So regardless, we would have met that threshold, but they did lower it. So that was kind of a piece of the puzzle. So some of the benefits of this program is that it increases access to nutritious meals at no cost to students. It increases student participation, improves the learning environment, and eliminates the social stigma. For all of us that have been in education a long time, getting those applications back was always a difficult challenge. You know, parents just didn't want to return those and fill those out. So you kind of eliminate the paperwork as you don't need to submit these applications. And the benefit certainly is felt by our students. So they get the benefit of then having those meals free of charge. So that's one of the benefits to this program. Okay. And then the last thing I guess I'd say on this is once accepted, then we're on a 4-year cycle with this.
Well, that'll be nice to know.
Yep. Yep.
Any other questions or comments on it? Okay, if not, E3.
So Havre Public Schools has had numerous projects occurring throughout the district and just wanted to kind of run through some of those updates with you. As we've talked about, the stage project wrapped up at Havre High School. If you haven't had a chance to get over to the auditorium, you'll hopefully all be there Monday to see this. But the stage looks great. Our guys did an excellent job tearing up the stage. To get to the issue wasn't an easy task necessarily. So Logan and Mike and the crew did an awesome job. It looks great. Amoresco, as we talked about with our projects, is finishing up working with FICO to finish up all the heating controls and the ventilation systems within the buildings. We kind of talked about the financials from that standpoint. COPS grant and test is way ahead of schedule. They're going to be wrapping up. I think the only building that they haven't met with, right, is the middle school, and they're going to be doing so in September, just based on the need to get all the right parts there at the time. So there was kind of a backlog in some of the stuff. So, but they're doing great moving forward with that. We had the removal of the MSU beer garden, if you will, that was out next to Blue Pony Stadium for quite some time. That was sitting right next to it. And as we navigated through the summer, Dustin brought this to my attention. He said, boy, you know, this would be great to have out as we went into graduation, which was awesome and amazing, to say, could we please remove this potential eyesore away from the stadium and our families when they're coming in to watch a game. I agree wholeheartedly. That's a good thing to do. Our guys, again, very impressed with our maintenance crew here at Havre Public Schools. They jumped on it and got it tore down, and we'll be all ready to go for come the first football game. So that was awesome. The leaks in the high school have been fixed through the ESSER funds. We got new computers and interactive TVs, Chrome carts throughout the district. Mark talked about the cameras, which is good. Jeremiah and Aaron and I and Colton have been talking about the handicapped entrance on the south side of the high school, which once we get through the heavy push, as you can imagine, our tech guys have been just working feverishly with all the updates that have been happening. So once we kind of get into that fall, they're going to be able to have time to then handle the door and make the necessary adjustments so that we've got a better way for students that need to access the handicap parking will be able to come into the high school. So that's a new feature we'll be adding. As well as we talked about in Haley's building, we'll be getting new cafeteria tables. And then in the high school, the gym walls, of course, we talked about, and that's going to start, I believe, next week. Is that correct, Dustin, next week? Okay. So that'll be going on next week. And then the last one was the EPA grant with Bear Paw. And we talked about the 16 million, and Paul will be letting us know about that in the fall. So those are some updates as we closed out the summer and where we're at.
At the middle school, were they able to get all the wiring done here?
You know,
That grant
I'm not,
ahead of time? Or was that
I'm not
still-
sure exactly where that finished out. Okay.
Oh.
Excellent. Thanks, Heather. Yeah, no, and honestly, like we talked earlier, I've been super impressed with Test just on their work ethic and getting it done. Like we talked about with that COPS grant, they had to September of 2025, and they've just we're ready to go. I'm like, wow, okay, so good.
Any questions on our projects? Okay, E4, the job fair.
Okay. So the Havre Public Schools Job Fair was a success. We had the administration, Scott, Rachel, myself were all on hand to interview for para, custodial, food service, and para openings. Cheryl was there as well. We were in a good position to move forward to begin the school year now. So honestly, you know, even though each year is a kind of a gamble in terms of what you're going to get or how many people are going to show, if you're able to acquire 4 to 5 people during that time, we look at it as a success. So Holly did a really good job navigating, setting that up with Beth. You know, it was very efficient. People, when they came in, we got the tables all set up. We were able to interview them easily. Then she and Cheryl and Beth did a nice job of calling on references and getting everybody lined up and ready to go to start the school year. So yeah, I think it was a good success. Holly, do you have anything you want to add with it, or?
You know, we'll plan on advertising a little sooner and in a couple more places for next year, and pretty thankful that we've done.
Were we able to pick up an additional bus driver? I know we were hoping for one. No.
No, we'd kind of hoped. Scott and I had our eyes on one that we thought maybe that one, but
Okay.
Where does that, if you were to like have a perfect scenario where you have every position filled that you guys wanted, or that you could fill, with budgets, how close are we to that?
I mean, we're really close. I'll let Cheryl kind of talk maybe from a care standpoint.
To pick up one more transportation and then potentially substitute or a swing shift for our custodial. Or from the crew.
We're really close to being right.
Oh yeah. Yep.
The August Institute.
August Institute has been going really, really well. You know, this year, of course, we had much more local talent than kind of those big ticket presenters that we were able to, you know, kind of use funds from not only ESSER, but then also the MTSS grant. And so we've really kind of harnessed that around the state. We had Mike Jetty come in for Indian Education for All. We've had the OPI Roadshow here. We've worked a lot in-house with our local people in terms of presentations. I know Miles had one today, and we've had PAX. Of course, the presenter with PAX was
Canada.
right. He came from a little distance, so that was that was one that was a little different, but it's went really smooth. Again, Holly and Erica and Heather did done a great job of kind of navigating the day to day with that. So I try to stop by in the mornings, whether that's to presenter or just kind of see and greet teachers and stuff. And it's been going really well. So positives for sure.
New teacher orientation?
Oh yeah, no. So we had a couple board members jump in and show over that. So appreciate Tyler and Kristen jumping in and being there. So we were able to visit with teachers right off the bat in the morning. We all kind of shared some important thoughts and wisdom of the day for them before they started on their power day, and then they go through a series of a lot of things throughout that day. So it's kind of a big ticket day, if you will. By the time then I came back and helped Holly close it out and stuff, and you can just see kind of the look in their eyes. They're like, "Please, it's not ready to be done. We could be out of here." But they were troopers. We only had 6 this year, but then actually with kind of the change we had in the middle school, we now will have 7 new teachers in total, just based on a recent situation we've had. But honestly, we're excited about our new teachers and staff, and you will get to meet the staff at the welcome back ceremony. So that'll be fun.
Ceremony.
Right? Yep. So as we kind of close this out, so just a quick reminder, the welcome back ceremony will be August 19th at 8 a.m. in the high school auditorium. Hopefully our board members can attend. It'll be a great ceremony. I'm going to have Tim open us up. Kristen will close it out. And then following that ceremony, when we get all done, for those of you who can stay and help Holly and I serve breakfast to then the staff as they come through in the high school cafeteria, that'd be awesome. Kind of talked about that in the spring, that'd be kind of a nice touch. Then as staff members going by, you all as trustees too, just maybe get a chance to thank them and visit with them real quick and stuff. So if you can stay and help us serve, that would be awesome. So.
Okay. I don't have any announcements.
That's okay. This past Wednesday, Mr. Nitz and Irvin went to the Safe Schools Council through Jeremy Bullock, and Mr. Nitz was awarded the Champion of School Safety, which is a pretty amazing award to get to have that local talent here. So we're extremely thankful to him and his foresight and continual planning. We're very lucky to have him here. Well deserved.
You look on the website, he's standing and smiling. Actually, Mark may have texted us that as well.
Anything else? If not this. This brings us to executive session part of our meeting. We're doing the student enrollment first. And
Correct.
Okay.
Did you want to take that?
Yeah, and at this time, if there's any persons present that will have a student here for the enrollment part, Mrs. Bitts will be out that door, and they can let her know that they're here for that we can make it a little bit faster process. We're going to take a 5-minute recess, and then we'll come back in executive session to approve. 7:28 or 7:28 now, so let's make it 7:35. Okay.
What's that?
It's going to stop the feed for a second. You can just make a motion to approve, yeah.
Here, I second.
Not representing either the school or the student. Except on hopefully if it's time, we will start the executive session. 50 and then another 7. Now we're in open session. I would entertain a motion on the extension hearing. By Kristen and seconded by Tyler that we expel student A for the 2024-2025 school year as presented. Vote. Entertain a motion that we reconvene at our next regularly scheduled meeting on, actually a special session.
Next Tuesday, the 20th.
Tuesday the 20th.
Yep.
At